Here you go.
Okay, you can have that one.
Okay. There you go. And we can talk more about that one.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I call to order the meeting of the Town Commission, March 4th at 6 p.m. Tracy, will you read the roll?
Sure. Commissioner Bessler?
Here.
Mayor Cause?
Here.
Commissioner DeHaseth?
Present.
Vice Mayor Magruder?
Here.
And Commissioner Sloat?
Present.
All right, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Tracy, are there any additions, deletions?
Yes, Mayor. I would like to pull item number 3 from the consent agenda and renumber that as item number 6A so we can discuss it.
Okay.
Also,
And-
Mayor, I'd like to pull item number 13 entirely from the agenda and have it come back to you in April with some additional backup material.
Okay. Okay, with, okay, I guess we'll discuss those when we get to them.
Yes, and you need a motion and approval for the
For what
amended
we just,
agenda.
do we have a motion to approve the deletions?
I'll make the motion.
Second?
I'll second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Carries unanimous. Okay, Tracy, announcements?
Yes, the next Planning and Zoning Commission meeting will be held on Monday, March 11th at 8:30 a.m. at Town Hall, and the next regular Town Commission meeting will be held on Monday, April 1st at 6 p.m. at Town Hall. The municipal election will be held on March 12th, 2019. There is one Town Commission seat open for a 3-year term and one Town Commission seat open for a 1-year term. Qualified candidates are Steve Cause, Susan Hurlbert, and John Lipscomb Jr. Charter amendment referendum questions will also be on the ballot. And residents who wish to add their name to the email blast list to receive important town notifications should sign up on the sheet provided on the counter in the lobby or notify the town clerk.
Okay, all right, we're open for public comment. Perhaps Pat Saunders could lead us off.
Thank you very much, Mayor. My name is Pat Saunders, 6590 North Ocean Boulevard. Tonight, I'm here to represent the Ocean Ridge Garden Club and to thank you, the commission, and the police, and the staff, and all the town for an amazing fundraiser, which we had on February 23rd. It was a combination art show and wine pairing dinner. And the art, some of the art is still up for display. Amazing talent from local artists. So anybody who wants to look around and shop, contact the artist directly. But we are so thrilled to be an entity in this town and receive the respect and help that we always get from everyone in this town. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And I just want to add to that, thank you. And it was a fantastic event. I don't know how many people were able to make it, but I hope you do it next year. And I applaud the Garden Club. Terry?
You didn't call me on first, so the magic wand thing didn't work.
It worked for a little while.
Terry Brown, Harbor Drive South. No, I just wanted to leap, if I could, quickly to the town manager's report. And it's been a pleasure working with Jamie Tipkin and all that he's done for the town, so I do appreciate that. But his suggestion that the town look at purchasing this property next door is something that you ought to do. You ought to consider doing it. I mean, he's got a real estate agent already. I don't know why the owner didn't come over and say, you guys get first dibs. But you're going to need to have more space. If you're talking about sanitary sewer, you're going to need an infrastructure. If you're talking about a rapid response location in this town for police and EMS, you need more space. So my recommendation, and I think the recommendation of some other folks in town, would be that you attempt. I don't know, you can't do anything tonight in terms of action because it's not on the agenda, but you could instruct the attorney to at least look at the avenues in which the town could purchase that property. Of course, everything can be negotiated, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes.
Jerry Magruder, 9 Ridge Boulevard, Ocean Ridge, Florida. I know I promised Don that I wouldn't come to meetings anymore once he was elected, but I'm coming here for Jamie, and Jamie only. And I'd like to thank Jamie so much for being our town manager. I knew the writing was on the wall the minute he was not given his raise last year. I know Mr. Cause said in the League of Cities that he believed in paying good people. If Mr. Cause had only Googled the gentleman's name, he would have found out what a treasure we had here in Ocean Ridge. Mr. Tickholm was a League of Cities president for 11 years. Mr. Tickholm, if you Google him, has page after page after page after page of qualifications that we could only hope for. Mr. Tickholm had one little mistake, unfortunately, and that was he was given a job with inferior equipment and never told. And so he didn't get the budget done right. But fortunately, Mr. Lucibella helped him. But still, he was never forgiven for that. And he never got his adequate salary. And I knew that when that came around, that was the end of him. And we lost a person that could get us bonds, a person that could get us anything that we wanted with his signature, and we lost him. And for you to say that you believed in paying good people, and you didn't, and I think that was horrible. And I think people should know why Jamie's leaving. And I knew the best thing that would come around to him, he would be gone. He got an excellent job, and we lost an excellent person, and he helped so many people in this town. I know he has. And I'm definitely going to miss the gentleman. An excellent town manager and administrator. He never showed any favoritism. And Jamie, I'm going to miss you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you. Clarification for the record, the town manager was given a $15,000 raise that covered the 3-year period he was here. On top of that $15,000 raise, he was given a $5,000 cash bonus, and now he's leaving us 2.5 months later. That's just for clarification for the record. Anybody else? Yes.
Good evening. My name is Britt Flanagan. I live at 5556 North Ocean Boulevard, and I'm here as a citizen to urge that this commission looks very carefully when we are approached by the Boynton Beach Utilities Department to investigate a hookup of sewage plant for Ocean Ridge that would be tied into the Boynton Beach plan. The plan right now, and as far as a recent meeting with homeowners associations, in particular Crown Colony and their group, as well as Ocean Ridge Yacht Club with the city utilities manager, indicated that there are lots of questions. They're not really sure where they're going with it. They're talking about a vacuum system, possibly a hybrid. Their intent right now is to take the plant that currently exists at Crown Manor and build a 2-story building over that plant. And that would be their vacuum, their pump station. I am in the process, and have been since last week when I went to this meeting, of talking to a number of people who have vacuum systems, looking at the pros and cons, also looking at the mistakes that were made. In general, they're environmentally safe. There are some really positive things. I'm not going to go into detail, but suffice it to say, we should not be passive in this effort on the part of Boynton Beach. I believe I know that in order for the Isram property to move forward, they need to increase the sewage system to accommodate a 10-story building. And Right now, they're planning on putting the pump station in Ocean Ridge. I did talk to Airvac, which was the company that was used at Ocean Shores in Washington, the state of Washington, and have learned of some other places that this system has been placed in Florida, Port St. Lucie, and some other towns. I plan to visit, find out what the pros and cons of their system is as far as Florida. Obviously, well, in Washington, they have earthquakes, they don't have hurricanes, but there's flooding is an issue. Backup in the sewage is an issue. We will, even though we hook up with that system, system will be in place and ours. So I feel that it's very important that we're prudent, we're reflective, we ask all the right questions, and we make sure that we don't make a mistake that we're going to be sorry for. Thank you.
Thank you. Betty?
Betty Bingham, 1 East Ocean Avenue. I just thought I would give you all something to think about for the future. I noticed more Airbnbs advertising rentals in Ocean Ridge for 3 days, for a week, here and there. And I don't know whether the lawyer could give us legislation that would allow us to notify Airbnbs that it is illegal, and where we can put the pinch. There are 3 of these people that rent bed and breakfasts. I just happen to know the name of Airbnb. But we need something stronger in our laws that allow the chief to go after these people. And I don't blame the people who are here renting the space as much as I do the people that own the property. And that's where the fine should come. I believe in fines, and we ought to notify Airbnb too. If we could write legislation that would cover, he's frowning. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes? Okay.
My name is Melanie Rodriguez. I live on 3 Fayette. Just trying to find out an answer for our street. I don't know if you can give the answer tonight, but we've been told that there's possibly a pedestrian crosswalk going in from Crown Colony down our street. So we are wondering, the street, if anybody is going to reach out to residents on our street, since it affects our street, because we have over 100 people a day going up and down our street, and it feels like it would open it up to more foot traffic as people come over the bridge or come from the other direction. Actually, your name was mentioned that you were meeting with Crown Colony, so I know they come out in numbers. We just have a small dead-end street, so it affects our street tremendously to have more foot traffic down a dead-end, small street. So is that an answer we can get tonight, or is anybody going to reach out to us
Right
as
now,
residents?
they're doing a pedestrian and vehicular study, so there's no need for everyone to have a big meeting until we get that study. Once we have that study, we give it to the Florida Department of Transportation. At that point, they'll make a decision. But before that, when we actually have the study, I would certainly hope for a lot of involvement from
So
Fayette.
someone would reach out to us,
Yes.
and would our opinion matter since we are in small numbers?
Of
I mean,
course.
like, could it go closer to Hersey to kind of break up the foot traffic? Because we have truly counted
The
over
problem is you
100
gotta have a
people.
landing pad, and it's A1A is owned by the state,
Mm-hmm.
and the crosswalk details and construction are dictated by the state.
So when they do a study, will they actually sit there and count over 100 people that go up and down our
Yep.
street on a weekend?
Literally count every single one.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank
Yeah.
you.
Yes?
Janet Shines, 111 Dolphin Road. So I'm going to echo Betty's complaint, but with a little bit more rigor. So we purchased our house here about a year ago. We're at 111 Dolphin, as I said, next to 120 Dolphin, which was also for sale. 120 Dolphin has subsequently been sold, and the person who bought it actually was solicited by an accountant in Highland Beach. They actually live in Highland Beach, that advertises that you can rent your house and make all your dreams come true. We have had 12 different renters in the last 65 days in the house. We have called the police many times. They have rung the doorbell. They have tried to talk to people. We've had people admit to our neighbors and ourselves that they were renting for 2 days, a week, 2 weeks. That is clearly not legal. So I would ask respectfully that the parties, the garbage, and the transient nature in my neighborhood be stopped. What I would propose is a law or a rule that requires anyone who is going to stay at a house in Ocean Ridge without the residents in place have to register with the town. If you're going to stay in our town and the person that owns the house is not there during your visit, you should have to register. You should have to prove identification, and you should have to sign why you're staying at someone's house. I know it's prohibitive to those people who want to lend their house to family members, but it is the only way to stop it. This house was on Airbnb. It was taken down. They are still consistently renting. They now have a golf cart and are driving up and down the street with their kids, making noise and hooping and hollering. So this is not the town I moved into. This isn't the town any of us moved into. I would respectfully ask the town attorney and the commissioners to find a way to stop this before our town becomes Deerfield Beach, which I don't think any of us want. Thank you for your
Jane.
time.
Chief, will you look into Dolphin, 120 Dolphin, and Ryan, maybe next meeting you have with the individual commissioners, we can revisit this?
Yes.
Okay. Yes.
Just kidding.
Hello, Mr. Lucibella. Okay, Tracy, will you please read the consent agenda?
Yes, sir. Adopt minutes of special town commission meeting of January 30th, 2019. Adopt the minutes of the regular town commission meeting of February 4th, 2019. Accept a police vehicle donated by the Ocean Ridge Department of Public Safety Support Group. Approve emergency repair expenditures for pump on Coconut Lane. And consent to insurance carrier proposed wool file settlement.
Okay, do we have a motion for approving the
I move
consent?
that we approve the consent agenda as read by Tracy.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. I believe that was unanimous. Thanks, Tracy. Okay, so Tracy moved number 3, adopt the goal setting and budget meeting calendar for 2009 to item 6A. And I guess that was because of date conflicts?
Yes, that is correct. We have a date conflict for the goal-setting workshop, so I need to find out if commissioners are available for April 18th at 2 p.m. instead. And then also, the first presentation of the budget, I'd like to move it to Thursday, May 30th at 2 p.m. due to another conflict.
It's okay with me. Any problems? Consensus okay? Change the dates?
I have no
It's
problem.
fine.
Okay.
All right, so we would just need to have a motion and a second to adopt the schedule as amended.
Can someone say so moved?
Yeah, I recommend to adopt the schedule as amended.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Okay, a fun part of the evening. As many of you know, we needed to fill a vacant commission seat left by Jim Bonfiglio, and we had various candidates interested in joining the commission for 3 or 4 months. And one candidate stood out because he'd been to every single town meeting that I've been to. So we appointed Bob Sloat. And now this will be his last meeting because we're having the elections and there'll be a new commissioner filling in his chair. I hope he can fill it in as ably as you have. And we also have a proclamation and a nice little frame for you. So if I could read this to you, proclamation recognizing Commissioner Robert Sloat for his dedication to the town. Whereas Commissioner Robert Sloat has served on the Board of Adjustments of the Town of Ocean Ridge for several years, and whereas Commissioner Robert Sloat generously offered his service to the town when James Bonfiglio resigned his seat on the Town Commission, and whereas the Town Commission voted to appoint Commissioner Robert Sloat to serve on the Town Commission to fill James Bonfiglio's seat, and there's a lot more of them, and whereas Commissioner Robert Sloat has been an active member of the community, attending many events and social functions over the years with his fellow citizens, and whereas Commissioner Sloat has always demonstrated compassion and concern for all citizens and staff of the town. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the mayor and the commissioners of the town of Ocean Ridge that we hereby do recognize and thank Commissioner Robert Sloat for his unwavering dedication to the town of Ocean Ridge and its residents and staff. Thank you, Bob. I want to present this to you.
Well, I want to thank everybody. I want to thank my fellow commissioners, Jamie, Tracy, especially Brian and Wayne, because you've tolerated me for 3 months. I want to thank the citizens of Ocean Ridge, and I want to thank, lastly, the girl I fell in love with when she was 16, my dear wife, Beth.
Oh, that's sweet.
Sherry, I want to share with you that I look forward to joining one of the most exclusive clubs, not Mar-a-Lago, in the state of Florida, and that's the former commissioners of the great town of Ocean Ridge.
Thank you, Bob. And I have a bit of a suggestion. I don't think we should let Bob off the hook here. As you know, we're going through a transition in Town Hall with the town manager leaving. Due to sunshine laws, the commissioners really can't sit down all together and discuss this. But now we have a commissioner who is totally up to speed on the situation, who could perhaps spearhead that if the rest of the commissioners agree. And he could get basically a job description from each member of the staff, and then he could talk to the commissioners individually to help the process.
And this is on the post office or zip
No.
code? Oh, I'm sorry. What was
This
this
is
item on?
we're having a transition from Jamie
Got it.
leaving and Tracy coming in as interim town manager. So the idea is to, the commission, I don't know about the other commissioners, but I had a tough time understanding a lot of the events that have been taking place and the money that's flying around. So if Bob is willing, I think he'd be a great person to sort of look at this whole situation for us and help Tracy and help Jamie and help us understand what needs to be done and what the exact job descriptions are.
I would love to help.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you.
And just for your information, the lady I work for did, and I participated with all the interviews, did a full job task analysis for the CRA of Delray Beach last year.
Good.
So I'm familiar with the process.
Excellent. So we have a consensus that Bob will,
I'm not quite sure where we're going, but I'm sure anything that you do will be
Well,
appreciated.
basically, a job task analysis includes looking at the job description, when it was written and what it contains, vis-a-vis what people actually do. And you rewrite the job description predicated upon their behavior in 2019, vis-a-vis when a job description was written maybe 5, 10, 15 years ago.
right? Just so we have like full understanding of each job and what we're doing.
I think Tracy is responsible for the draft job description that we have now for the town manager. She's done quite a bit of research into that. So I really have no objections to Bob reviewing that with Tracy to see if there's anything that we've missed on a one-on-one basis between Bob and Tracy.
If I can just add to, we never had a job description for the town manager's position, so.
Right.
Other than is defined in the charter and code, which
Right.
is the
Correct.
basis for the whole description.
Right.
And I think Tracy's done a pretty good job, so maybe Bob's work will be not that difficult.
Right. Well, there's also other positions as well.
I need something to do.
Yeah. So do we have a consensus? It seems pretty simple to
Sure.
me.
Sure.
Okay, consensus.
Looking forward to working with you, Tracy.
Two.
Okay, this is Town Attorney Brian Shute, first reading of ordinance number 2019-03.
Let me just read it by title. Ordinance number 2019-03, an ordinance of the Town of Ocean Ridge, Florida, amending its Code of Ordinances by amending Chapter 1, General Provisions, Section 1-3, Definitions, to modify definitions regarding flood elevations, amending Chapter 66, Environmental Regulations, Article 2, Flood Damage Prevention, Division 2, Definitions, Section 66-25, Definitions, to modify definitions regarding flood elevations, amending Chapter 67, Buildings and Building Regulations, Article 3, Technical Codes and Other Construction Standards, Division 1 generally, Section 67-32, floor elevations, to modify the town's minimum floor elevations in order to comply with the revised FEMA flood map requirements, providing for codification, repeal of conflicting ordinances, severability, and an effective date.
And this ordinance is before you for first reading to bring the floodplain code of the town up to, up to speed and delete some sections in here that were outdated. But before I mess it up anymore, let me just turn it over to Lisa Trepepi, where she can kind of explain it a little bit better than I certainly can.
Boy, I really didn't want to come after that wonderful proclamation, because this is quite boring in comparison. This is basically good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. This is basically a cleanup and what we would call a housekeeping issue. For over a decade, we've been working with the National Flood Insurance Program here locally with the Palm Beach County League of Cities to look at our FEMA maps, which are the maps that we use to adjust finished floor elevations, and also adjusters for insurance reasons use that map as well. Some of those maps were 3 to 4 decades old. So I'm proud to say that after about 10 years of working this issue, as a group, we came up with brand new maps, and in October 2017, they were mandated here in Ocean Ridge and in Palm Beach County. So bottom line, the finished floor elevations increased by 0.6 feet. And that's it in a nutshell. As Brian mentioned, we did do some cleanup. There's another datum out there called NAVD, and I don't want to confuse everyone. So there was a suggestion at the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting to show you a map, and basically it just shows before October 2017 and after October 2017. The finished floor elevations have now increased by 0.6 feet. And if there's any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Just might want to point out that the graphic on the screen represents the very slim difference between the two conversions.
Right.
To the typical house.
Gotcha.
I have a question, Lisa, and this was 2017. I know down in the Keys that they've already increased this yet again. I mean, are we going to be looking at something like this probably every 2 to 3 years, or?
Well, for as long as I've been doing this, it's taken more than a decade. If we can, we will. It comes down from the federal government downwards, and then we as the local engineers, the League of Cities, the county, we all get together and we work out whether we agree with the proposals from the federal government or not. We could see a quicker turnaround than what we've seen before, but some of these maps were from the 80s, and now we finally got it to 2017. So that's, 37 years of using an old map. So yes, it's been a big leap. I would suspect that it won't take another 37 years.
I would agree. Okay, thank you.
Anything
Okay,
else?
thanks.
Okay, thanks.
Public comment, public comment, public comment.
Just, actually, a question for the town engineer.
Just say who you are, Terry, so we have you.
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry about who
Terry
you are.
Brown,
Yeah.
Harbor Drive South. A property near where we live, further west, has recently been surveyed. In the center of the road, the crown of the road, has a marking on it, 3 feet. But it doesn't say NA or NG. But we're assuming that it's NA. Is that correct? Or how do you know? When someone marks it, when the survey marks it on the street, what elevation actually is it?
Don't ever assume. Number one. engineers are not, surveyors that put those markings on the road, they are not going to tell you whether it's NGVV or NAVV. They're not going to.
Do they
tell you.
know?
Well, they have to know.
Yeah.
They have to know.
What goes on someone's survey because they're selling the property.
Correct.
I just wanted to point that out, that the roadway, that part of the roadway goes down to zero. The water comes up through the street, and this is 3 feet above sea level. This is our roads in Ocean Ridge.
Okay, no more public comment. Discussion, commissioners?
Don, I think you should make the motion.
I should make the motion, okay. The water boy. Okay. I make a motion that we approve ordinance number 2019-03, as read by Tracy. And that's it. That's the motion.
On first reading. On first reading.
On first reading.
Yes.
We have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Okay, item number 9.
First reading of ordinance number 2019-04, an ordinance of the Town of Ocean Ridge, Florida, amending its code of ordinances by amending Chapter 42, solid waste, by enacting Section 42-2, solid waste collection fees, late fees, interest, and waivers to provide for late fees and interest and the waiver of fees and interest in certain situations, providing for codification, repealed conflicting ordinances, severability, and an effective date.
A number of years ago, the Town Commission gave direction to staff to include or to have the ability to provide for late fees if the solid waste fees were not paid on time, and to also, that included interest in that as well. What I've done here, because that was really just in the minutes of a meeting, what we're doing here is we're putting it in an ordinance. We're actually codifying what the prior commission direction was back in '06. And so what this provides for is that the late fee that will be charged will be on your schedule of fees that you all will adopt, generally on an annual basis, setting forth all of the fees. You'll have that fee in there. The interest fee is at the statutory rate, but it also provides, we did add another section in here that provided that in case there is a mistake that is really a mistake on the part of the town, that the town manager at the time would have the ability to waive that late fee or that interest amount. And so that's what this ordinance does.
Okay, and at the next meeting, we do the fee schedule?
Yes, at the next meeting, we can have the fee schedule and, insert the fee in there at that time.
Okay. Public comment? Commission discussion?
I had one question. Last time that this was brought up, although it was not in form of an ordinance, there was also discussion of the ability for the town to lien a property if the fees were not paid. Is that still part of this? I don't see that it is.
Yes, we still have the authority to lien the property. If the
I see that it's there under section B. I just wanted to make sure that that's exactly what we were wanting to do.
I will have to get back to you on that because I don't know, when I was looking at this, if there's another section of the code that provides for that, and that's the reason it's not in here. But I will have to get back to you on that question.
But since we do put liens, that
Yeah,
it's
I just
covered
want to make
someplace.
sure it's not in conflict with something else that we had discussed earlier.
Okay.
Okay. Do I hear a motion on the adoption of ordinance number 2019-04
Sure, I'll make the motion.
on first reading?
Yes.
Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. Ten, Tracy?
Yes, resolution number 2019-02, a resolution of the Town of Ocean Ridge, Florida, appointing all of the attorneys of the law firm of Davis and Ashton, PA, as ex officio special magistrates to serve and preside over code enforcement hearings of the Town of Ocean Ridge, establishing the term of appointment and fees to be paid for the special magistrate services provided herein, and providing for an effective date.
The special magistrate agreement that we had with Davis, well, actually, it was with Corbett, White, Davis, and Ashton at the time, which was back in 2016, is expiring. And what I've done is I've made this professional services agreement comply with their current law firm name, and it incorporates the attorneys in the firm, that any one of them could be a special magistrate here for the town of Ocean Ridge. And it also provides for a term in here as well.
And that, from what I've heard from you, and I've seen other commissioners have spoken to you, that this particular group has been doing an excellent job.
They are. I do want to point out that Jennifer Ashton, the attorney who has primarily been the special magistrate for the town, even though we haven't had that many hearings, will be leaving the state and moving to North Carolina. However, she is also planning on coming back on a periodic basis, and we'll have to kind of wait and see how that works out, because I think she's still planning on continuing to practice law in the state of Florida for a number of months after her move, which is after May. So we will see how that works out, and we may come back to you with some other changes. I don't know, but we'll see how that goes.
Public comment? Okay, commission discussion?
She's wonderful. I mean, she works for the League of Cities also, and she's always been very professional, and I'd hate to see her move, but.
I know.
And Attorney Davis is the attorney for Manalapan and also for Briny Breezes.
Correct.
And just like Commissioner DeSesa said, Jennifer Ashton was the attorney for the League of Cities. And she's a good person. I hired her as an associate many years ago.
So do you want to make the motion?
I will make the motion. I move that we approve resolution number 2019-02, first reading.
A second?
Or doesn't need a reading. Doesn't need a motion.
Doesn't need a reading.
Doesn't need a reading. Yeah.
A second.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. All right, this is Vice Mayor Magruder amending the Town Commission Rules of Order and Procedure.
Well, at the last town meeting, Mr. Brown brought to the commission that he felt that we should add to our rules of procedure a method of allowing all candidates to be nominated in sequence before a final vote was taken. And he referenced this Palm Trans Service Board procedure, which I have attached for the commissioners to review. I will say that I think this method is probably a kinder and more gentler method of selecting the mayor and the vice mayor, in that it does not require a motion, second, and vote. It allows for a motion and then another motion so that you can put other candidates in play or to be considered, and then a vote. In talking with the staff, the administrative staff, and looking at this, we thought that it probably needed some revisions, and so we wanted to put it for discussion with the commission today. But additionally, we thought that perhaps the same way that we selected Mr. Sloat as a commissioner is that we do it by ballot. And so that the administrative staff would bring in a ballot at the next meeting with all of the commissioners' names on it, and then we would find out, we would make nominations or have nominations of who would choose to be mayor, and then we would vote with a ballot, similar to the way that we did Mr. Sloat. So those are the two topics.
Does everyone understand the ballot concept? Okay.
So those are the two concepts that I'm proposing that we discuss and maybe just get a consensus on and do that at the next meeting.
Public comment? All right, commission discussion. I have no problem with it.
Yeah, when I first read this Palm Trans, I thought that was kind of going to be complicated with, like, how do you get to the majority vote? But I think if you're throwing that off the table and you're agreeing with the ballot, then I'm for that way. I think that's the better way to do it.
It's fair.
Agreed. Yes.
So what do we do, Tracy?
Yeah. So you can adjust your rules, you can add a 10.4 to your rules, and
Yeah.
the suggested wording would be, to fill the positions of mayor and vice mayor, the town commission shall vote by ballot. The town clerk shall prepare the ballots listing each town commissioner's name. And then you could also, if you wanted to, add the wording, just like in 10.2 last sentence, the town commission may, by majority vote of the commission, change the voting process at any time. That way, it leaves it open for you if you so wish.
And can we call it the Robert Sloat method?
Sure.
Brian, that wording
Call it the
is good with
slow
you?
cheat.
Yes, I think we can live with that wording. So we may, if you want to give direction to approve it in that similar fashion, if we have to tweak any of the wording, then we can do that and bring it back. I guess, Tracy, your thoughts were to bring it back at the next meeting to have the commission approve.
Well, I'd like to have it approved at this
Tonight,
meeting,
okay.
if possible. That way, it's in place for the next meeting.
Okay.
So do we need more discussion? So can we just say so moved, or do you have to read it again and then somebody has to?
No, I think that's okay. I mean, if you all are okay with it, then the motion would be to approve the change in the rules as indicated by the town clerk, and that will be that will be the addition to the rules
And that would be-
of procedure.
Would be Rule 10.4 then,
Correct.
I think. And then are you going to change the Rule 10 where it just says appointments to the commission and boards and committees to include?
Including mayor and vice mayor positions?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Somebody want to make a motion? I think at this point you could just say so moved.
So moved.
There you go. Thank you.
We missed, somebody trying to talk on this, public discussion? No. We had discussion, I just heard something else. Okay, do I hear a second?
Second.
Wait, I think.
All she was going to ask is what happens if you don't have a majority, Mr. Mayor? What if there are 4 candidates?
Well, that's what I was asking, if people understand the ballot process. Like, let's say the 5 of us are going for, the mayor, right? And then if everyone votes for themselves, yeah, we'll run into a problem,
Well,
right?
no, because you go to round 2 at that point.
Right. But if everyone does it again, you're gonna run into a problem.
Right.
So hopefully, somebody will get
Could
2
be
votes,
very
somebody will
likely.
get 2 votes, somebody will get 1 vote, and then that's read aloud by the town clerk, and then the person with the 1 vote would make the decision. Hopefully, they would then go, because you only have 2 people left in the second balloting, so to speak. That's how it works. So do I hear a second?
Second.
And all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous? Okay, Chief?
Good evening. As directed in the February 2019 meeting, I compiled some information on Code Red and another mass notification alerting system called Civic Plus. It is very similar for your review and consideration. Of note, both of them provide very similar services. I'm not familiar with either one personally. I know that Code Red was brought up by Commissioner DeHathis based upon Gulfstream's experience with them, so if you'd like to weigh in on that, by all means, please give us the pros and cons. The cost are outlined here. You'll notice that Code Red is $1,500 initially, while Civic Plus is $2,065. However, the second year offsets for Civic Plus, it goes to $965, and the subsequent year for Code Red is $1,500. If you're looking at this on a long-term project, Civic Plus may have lesser costs after year 3. However, I believe that projection is probably something too far out for us to truly make in this case. And not being familiar with either one personally, I didn't want to make a recommendation, but wanted to provide you with information.
Public comment? Christine, you want to lead the discussion? You brought this in.
Sure. This is an initiative that, as you know, I attend other commission meetings, and this is something that they had discussed. A lot of their population is highly seasonal in Gulfstream, as we have also here. And a lot of the residents were concerned, particularly during the time, hurricane season, when they aren't here locally, how could they best get in touch without having to visit a website, without having to find an email? Is there some other notification process that they could have? And I guess this was, and I don't know much more besides that, but I guess this is a text-based system that when something happens in the town on an emergency or a need-to-know notification, a text message is sent out to people who opt in to receive it, and it's been very well received in Gulfstream. People seem to be very happy. They've used it for road closures. They've used it, they had a construction truck that dumped over. They used it for that. So it just seems to be a very cost-effective way potentially for us to do something. We had tried to join, and we have joined something called Neighborhood, what's it called?
Next door.
Next Door.
The Nextdoor application.
I will just say personally, I do not like it. You hear about stray cats, you hear about people who want to paint the side of their houses, and I was very naively asked a lot of people to join, and they're like, why'd you ask me to do that? I'm like, I'm sorry.
Did they find a lost chihuahua?
I don't know.
I'm serious.
Oh, no, that seems to be the mainstay of that communication system. And I understand the reason that we were using that is then we are not subject to public records request for data. So I understand that component of it. So I guess my question to you, Chief, is in your investigation, would any information that you gather and that we use as a town for Code Red or Civic Plus be subject to public records request? And if so, is it just the raw data as in the text number, or is it the text number and somebody's name? How does that work?
For the opt-in portion, it's my understanding that it is public record because we're expending public funds.
Mhm.
We would not have that information. We would get it from the vendor, obviously. There is also a geo-fencing tool involved with both of these systems that don't require people to opt in giving information. It allows the opt-in based upon where I am. So if you're here, you can opt in with your cell phone by crossing a geographical boundary. So if we had an incident that requires AONA to be shut down, it would go out to everyone that's in this particular geographical region. Nothing I have found, and I've looked to say, is it exempt from public record? Nothing that I have found definitively says it is. There are some opinions that it is not, but I didn't find that from the Attorney General or any definitive source that I don't think the attorney could weigh in and say he would agree with me that, oh, yes, definitely.
So what type of information then would be part of a public records request if that were?
If you opted in for email, it would be an email address. If you opted in for telephone, text messaging, it would be the number to that text messaging, and in all likelihood, because of the nature of how text messaging works, the carrier that you use, that it's my understanding from both of these companies that they do not collect personally identifiable information. We're paying them, and all they need is the minimal information to send the message that we want to go out. And though there are some two-way communication tools, I would not advocate that at this time.
So it would be a phone number, but not the person's name and address and rank and file.
That's my understanding.
I was fascinated by what you call the geo tripwire, so to speak. So if somebody has a cell phone, Lisa has a cell phone, when she comes into Ocean Ridge, if an alert went out, they would know her cell phone's here in town and they'd hit it?
Based upon the location of the phone at the towers and the geolocation of that phone, it's supposed to do that, yes.
Wow. So it's like Big Brother. It's amazing.
It's called geofencing. It's used in most of
It's
the
used-
technologies.
But
It's
any
currently
tourist, anybody?
It's currently used on a lot of social messaging apps that you
Yes.
opt in for
Yeah.
already.
But if
So
you're not opted in, does your phone get hit?
It should not.
No.
Okay, that's my question.
I think you had a
Yes.
disable the Airbnb portion of it.
I appreciate that. That'll make your job easier. Just by background again, Janet Shines, 111 Dolphin Bend, former executive at Verizon. So I'm up here helping you at a technical basis if that's acceptable to the commission. So how this will work is if someone with their cell phone turns off their GPS tracking, it will not in fact be able to give them an alert. So it's not considered truly a public safety application. The geo-targeting only works if you both opt in with your cell phone or email and you turn on your GPS tracking. That means should there be a situation where your network is down or out, you would not be able to broadcast those messages. So while it's a good over-the-air thing, is not considered a public safety application per se. There are more robust applications, but their expenses is much, much higher. So I just wanted to share that data and information. The data that both of those applications use is in fact opt-in data, which means that not only the town, but also the provider has access to that information and can use that for aggregated marketing or aggregated data, including geotagging. So I hope that helps, and I'm happy if anybody wants to look at the applications more closely, I'm happy to help in any way I can. Thank you.
Thank you, Janet.
Chief, is the opt-in for both text messages and email, or is it a choice of either one?
My understanding is that you can opt in for how you would like to be notified, one or multiple ways.
But it can be multiple ways.
So that's what both companies have advised me, it can be multiple ways.
It's my understanding, Chief, that Wellington just signed up for the Civic Plus.
So I gave you three vendors. The third for the $19,900 is what Ms. Shines is talking about as far as a robust emergency alerting we manage it system. That was very expensive. The Civic Plus is similar to Code Red, which is a mass notification device. Yes, Wellington, and the reason I found it was because it was in the newspaper, that Wellington was switching from Code Red to Civic Plus. It was a notification to their residents in the Palm Beach Post, I believe is where I read it, which piqued my interest, so I decided to call them. No one at Wellington speaks ill of Code Red. It's that they are changing their social media platforms and looking overall at a lot of other things. Nobody said they were unhappy with Code Red, which without some additional information from users, not the vendor, I didn't want to.
So the only difference in between the two is really the longer term cost, the second year on, if we do
Your
stay with
upfront
you.
cost, if you wanted to try it for a year, your upfront costs for Code Red are going to be less than Civic Plus. If you're anticipating keeping this particular messaging mass notification system, your overall cost with Civic Red should be less over the long term.
If we were to change after year one, would we then need to do the re-sign up with the residents all over again?
My understanding is vendor specific.
So it kind of makes a difference on which one we go with, the first choice, and try to make that one last for a longer period of time.
Since we're discussing this outside of a budget cycle, it is extremely important.
Phil, any?
I'm fine.
Yeah. So, what do you want to do?
I think it's pretty economical. I mean, if we have to wait till budget cycle to initiate something like this, then
You want to hold it off till budget cycle?
I would prefer not to, but I mean, I'm comfortable with that also. I mean,
I'm just a little scared by the technology, frankly. More I was listening to what Janet was saying. You know, I don't quite know what we're getting ourselves in. I mean, if they're gonna take all these phone numbers, let's say we blast out to 1,000 people, and now Code Red's cheap because they can make money off those phone numbers through other means. That's what she
Is that what you were intimating, that they would then use it to send us all a 10-cent coupon off on diapers or something like that?
Typically, they have to aggregate it and sell the data as an aggregation. So as an example, they can say the 1,000 residents of Ocean Ridge have these specific behaviors that would let a marketer target people that live in Ocean Ridge, but typically they're not allowed to actually send a marketing message to each individual text message. But targeting, and this is data can be very effective and might not be something we have to do. Maybe worth looking at the $19,000 solution.
I'm glad you're not at the budget meetings.
Sounds like maybe we need to do a little bit
Yeah.
further
Yeah, I think
investigation.
it's a good idea to have Janet work with the chief a little bit.
Janet, would you work with the chief and
That kind of knowledge
allay
would
our
be very
fears?
helpful.
All right, so Tracy, we're just going to move on from number 12 with no resolution. Okay? Okay, number 13 is struck. Staff reports. Jamie?
Thank you, Mayor. My report's in your backup, and first, can we bring up the graphic I have for the beach crossover, please?
Yes. This one or
That
the
one's
other one?
fine.
Okay.
I just wanted to show you this real quick. We're ready to go on the Beachway crossover. We've now met with Rob Barron, our dune expert. He's given us quotes based on plant materials, both availability and sustainability for the beach replanting at the extension of Woolbright at Beachway and Old Ocean. The vendors for demolition of the existing cement piece, as well as bringing in infill sand, are all lined up. The total estimated cost for this project to move forward is about $8,500 complete. This has also been permitted already by DEP. What this drawing shows you is basically the configuration, where you see the drawing with the dotted line, with the dots around the side there. That's the seaward side of the current crossover. The dots represent where sea oats and dune grasses would be implanted. The path that comes in from the beach and basically heads north towards a little square box. That little square box indicates the position of the existing utility pole that is at the north end of our right-of-way in that area. And the wedge-shaped planting in the middle there is a combination of the list of plants below. The four silver saw palmettos are indicated there by little fan leaves. Those would be upgraded species to provide a wind and visual shield to help eliminate the wind tunnel effect and the sandblasting effect of sand down the configuration the way it is currently. And then the front plants that are along the edge of pavement there are privet and other shrubs. Those would be flowering plants that are existing in our dune crossover booklet, and they resemble the plantings that are used down at the Garden Club version of the crossover down at the south end of town. This configuration, these would all be native and sustainable dune species. When we put all these plants in, according to the direction by the commission, we will hand water this site from a construction meter from right across the intersection there. And when everything takes, this would fill in and be the first of our pilot project examples for natural dune crossovers that are increasing the beach space, as we've discussed at several previous meetings. All the vendors are now lined up on this. As I mentioned, the cost is already budgeted for, and it's due to be about $8,500, and we're ready to rock and roll, as they say. We had to wait for March 1st because of weather conditions. The one caveat left on this project is just checking with the turtle people, which are a key component of this environment here to assure that we don't have any nesting going on in the perimeter of where we'll plant. They will check off on that and away we'll go. Estimated build and installation time on this entire project is about 2 weeks from go date, and we're ready to go now. If the commission is in consensus as to this treatment, as has been discussed several times, we will give Mr. Barron a call tomorrow. He will cut the PO and away we'll go in the next few days.
Yeah, well, one other point, when I met with Rob Barron, I know you spent a lot more time than I have. Another benefit to this is that if we do have a tremendous storm, it's a much better chance that the ocean won't break over the dune because of the snake of the path.
Correct.
I thought, it's just like the wind, it also helps the water and helps erosion.
Yes, erosion and wind are major factors resolved by this design.
Yeah.
For those of you who have been down to Delray Beach, Delray Beach is a success story that was executed under Mr. Barron's design build plans, and they've actually increased beach over the years with natural paths and dune-friendly plantings. The other piece of this we talked about in previous meetings is that Mr. Barron will be working with us on a longer-term plan for residents to opt in to buying certain species for the dune and then implant them either themselves or through their garden people or with assistance. And the plan that would be brought forward on that would be related to buying, our master dune architect, if you will, would buy large quantities of recommended plants in wholesale and then make them available to the residents at a wholesale price and give them pointers whether they wanted to put them in themselves, have their landscaping people do it, or get assistance from the dune experts. So that'll be phase 2. This project, though, phase 1 is ready to go and just need consensus that we're all good to go. It's DEP permitted, will be confirmed for turtle sufficiency, for lack of a better expression, and we're ready to go. All the vendors are lined up, so.
And we already approved it too, right?
Yes,
During
we've
the budget
approved it
process.
on budget, it's in the
Numerous
budget.
times, actually.
I just want to make sure
Good to go?
everybody's comfortable with what's going to happen, because this is a very different look than the historic bridged infrastructure that's over many of the dunes. This
If it
isn't
doesn't work, we'll
prescribed
just
for
blame
every
you.
crossover, but where it's
Because he won't be
appropriate.
here.
One of the initial ideas or concepts was the beach mats that Rob Barron had. Is that still incorporated in this plan or no?
He is currently not recommending them. He believes in a natural sandy path is the better solution. However, we have that option to come back and put in tethered beach mats if there's a issue of accessibility or grade or some concern from the residents that they need a little more stability under their feet. It's not necessary for the dune protection or the success of the project. That would be a call later on if people feel they need some sort of infrastructure there to traverse the dune. When the sea oats and related plants go in there, we would be putting up a temporary, basically a green version of construction fencing to make sure that people don't trample over the new plantings, the seedlings, but they would have a very difficult time going through the silver saw palmettos and the other more dense plantings on the pavement side of the dune.
Jamie, I don't see the bike rack anywhere.
The bike rack would be situated somewhere at the most optimal place around the entranceway of the path. That hasn't been located yet, but we have the bike rack and it will go back in a suitable location. Most likely hidden from the street, tucked into the pathway there.
Okay, I understand the advantages of being hidden. What is the possibility of putting the bike rack on the opposite side of that, where I think that we've got enough property where the fire hydrant is, where the street sign is Beachway, and I think there's a stop sign there. So
Well, we have the most right-of-way here in terms of where that little square emblem is that represents the utility pole, which makes a great place for us to start our path. We have the greatest distance of right-of-way setback from there northward, so we have the option of putting in the bike rack there. We can certainly explore the hydrant side of the street, although that detaches it from the destination.
I don't know what the residents think about putting the bike on the other side.
I live down in that area, and the residents want the bike path on the path, so to
path.
speak.
Okay. And then without the wooden planks, then does this have to meet ADA compliance?
No.
It does not.
And also, the configuration of the pathway gives us ample grade from pavement's edge up to the height of the dune. That's why it goes in at an angle, and then it takes a hook and goes over the dune at that point. There's nothing insurmountable here for the average pedestrian. And even putting in tethered mats would not make it any more ADA accessible. DEP has not required us to do ADA permitting because we don't have the right-of-way and the scope to run the ramps and do the full ADA access.
Okay, that's good.
Now, By contrast, at Porter Street, where you have a full
Let's
infrastructure
just
and you
stay,
have a deck and
let's stay
it's-
on Beachway for now so we can wrap this up.
Okay, well, I just wanted to say where, by example, where we have infrastructure up at Porter Street, that's fine and that has accessibility and there's no proposal to do this kind of treatment there because you have sufficient access and grade to do that. For this one, the proposal is full natural treatment as we're projecting here.
We could break tradition and have a public comment. You got to go to the podium. We've been through this 3 times, that's why.
Hi, Cindy Martell, 46 South Harbor Drive. So my question is, a lot of us didn't even know this was going on. So who voted on this? And I just don't want it to see at Porter Street. I don't want ours to go away.
No,
Like
no, no,
this.
this is
Okay,
a
so-
pilot at Beachway only, and then each
Okay.
individual crosswalk will be addressed in a very public fashion as needed.
As needed.
Right, so right now, there's no discussion of doing anything at Porter whatsoever.
But how did this get decided when, I mean, I never heard about it
think
until
it
I saw them
started
taken it
Maybe
down.
18 months ago?
Okay.
Yeah.
But then it was just at a meeting,
It's
everybody
been
just kind
discussed
of,
at several meetings.
Yeah.
just because
Ad
of the
nauseam.
people
Yeah.
coming. Okay, so everybody agrees
Yeah.
to do this?
Precisely.
Okay. But Porter Street, it's not going to be touched?
Correct, at this time, and if it does, you will have plenty of notice.
Okay.
You know, but there's no plans to do anything at Porter
All
Street.
right.
Okay,
There's
Jamie,
consensus to move.
You open it up to public comment, is that correct?
I made an exception.
Terry Brown, Hubbard Drive South. Just a couple of observations. I have a lot of comments, but I'll keep it minimum. That square box that you have there is a power pole, and it's not to scale. It's a monster of a power pole, and there's an electrical junction box right on the ground on the footpath where you're saying people are going to walk up there with electric wires that come in that join all the other power poles along that street. And the next question is, where does the public access signage go? DEP representative told me that there is supposed to be some kind of sign that says public access, whatever you use in Ocean Ridge. So where are you going to put that sign?
Adjacent to the opening. Where-
Adjacent to it?
Just like any other crossover.
Any other, right or left, we don't know yet?
No, that'll be site-specific. For example, what you brought up about the infrastructure that's there, obviously, if it's in the way, you can't put a sign there, so
Yeah.
the infrastructure's not going
Well,
on.
I'm more concerned about people stepping on it in wet weather and getting electrocuted, and what kind of liability the town would have on that, on the electrical box on the ground. The other thing is, how will people know that that access is there? I mean, they would have to walk up and look for the access. Is that what we're talking about? There's not going to be a sign in front of the shrubbery saying public beach access with an arrow?
No, it'll be the sign that is currently
the
there,
sign
the
at the
identical
entrance.
sign, just like
Where
it is
where it
now.
is right there now. It's going to stay?
It's going to be near the opening to the walkway.
Okay. While I'm talking about signs, I really think that you ought to consider putting a sign where they built that monster of a duplex down there near Briny Breezes, adjacent to Briny Breezes. The sign that was there that just had the speed limit posted had been pretty much destroyed by the construction, and they propped it back up after they finished. But you ought to have a sign there that says you're entering the town of Ocean Ridge. There's no designation from Briny Breezes in the county pocket that you're now in the town of Ocean Ridge. I think this is important. Most of the people
Thanks,
that
Terry.
come through there don't know.
Jamie, take a look at that situation.
Sure.
Thank
Okay,
you.
do we have a consensus on the Beachway pilot crossover?
Yes.
Move forward?
Yes.
Okay. All right,
Great.
thanks.
Move forward on that. Thank you. Just one other quick note, because I think I heard it came up earlier. We are waiting on a date, a workshop date with Winton Beach Utilities to talk about some of the issues about septic sewer, the private proposal down at the south end, and other related utility discussions. Mr. Groff and the Boynton Utilities Director and Deputy Director are just waiting to land us those dates. Could be as soon as the next 2 to 3 weeks, where they'll sit down and have that discussion with you, because they want to talk to the commission before they make a final proposal to the private system, to the multifamily.
So that meeting is just going to be the.
A workshop.
Yeah,
With-
including public,
Well, that'll be according to
so
your rules.
where's, yeah, okay. Okay.
Yeah, it's a public meeting, and, but
So
you
just
don't
make
have
sure
to
we
take
notice
action
it,
at it.
right.
Yes,
Okay, cool.
correct. The other item I had on my report is getting pulled and reviewed as part of the other earlier item we pulled. And just finally, I'd like to say, this is my last meeting, and contrary to some of the comments earlier, I have really enjoyed working here. It's a great, fantastic town. I thank all of you that have made amenities along the way for me. The role that I've taken on is a professional opportunity for me to a town that I helped start from scratch, and I can grow it to a brand-new town. You don't get an opportunity like that every day. They have circled back a few times over the years to ask me to do that, and this time I said yes. So I'm very sad to leave this town, but I'm very confident that we've left a very good team of professionals in place that will carry on the work and the camaraderie and the programs that we've worked so hard on over the last 3.5 years. And I want to thank each and every one of you for allowing me to serve you and have the honor of being here for the time that I have been.
Thank you, and we're not done with you yet. You'll be towards the end of the agenda. Okay, town attorney?
No report.
Police chief?
Monthly reports attached. If you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them. If not, I would like to echo the sentiments of the community and the commission to Mr. Titcomb for his leadership and direction that he's given us in the last 3 years, especially in the police department and helping us to grow and meet the needs of the community.
Chief, I have a question. We had a major accident last Tuesday. Was it Tuesday of last week?
Yes, sir.
My question is, why did we not block off traffic down in Manalapan instead of having the traffic come all the way to the inlet and have to turn around and then go all the way back? I should have asked you in the meeting that we had, I'm sorry I didn't, but I was curious why that did not happen.
Temporary unplanned road closure, generally keeping the road open as far as we can before you get to the area. Number one, taking into consideration the safest place and the most effective way to turn traffic around is to use the structures that you have. The inlet is a great place. We do it consistently. If it had been an extended closure, we would have asked Manalapan to perhaps close it up by the O spot, however, it causes larger problems because you have to service all of the homes between there and north. It is an inconvenience. We recognize that it was a serious head-on, multi-casualty event that required a considerable amount of effort on fire rescue and the police. We contained it as much as we could and opened it as fast as we can. We're kind of constrained. It's not safe for us to have people turning around on the stretch from 1500 in Manalapan to the inlet unless absolutely necessary, whereas we can just loop them through the inlet, and though it's an inconvenience.
It was a drive.
I understand that, and we don't have the availability of message boards for a half-hour to 45-minute event, unfortunately, to post that. I don't know if they would be effective with the resources we have even.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else for the chief? Okay. Building official Wayne Cameron?
The backup reports included in your folder. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them.
Anybody got any questions for Wayne? Okay, we're moving on to number 18, Town Commissioner comments, Wilbright Bridge openings by Mayor Cause. Hopefully there's a few people from that area of town that are here. So this came up when I was meeting with a group, and I think it's an excellent idea. It's going to require some coordination, and it's an opportunity for us to work with Boynton. I don't know how many of you use the Wilbright Bridge versus the Ocean Avenue Bridge. Ocean Avenue Bridge opens on the half hour, in other words, on the hour and the half hour. Wilbright Bridge opens on demand. And I don't know how many of you have been stuck out on US 1 in Boynton, heading north towards the intersection, and come across the total gridlock that occurs when the bridge is up. the traffic coming east on Woolbright, the drivers don't see that they can't go anywhere, and they end up just jamming up the entire intersection into gridlock. The on-demand of that bridge means literally what on-demand says. They can, anytime a captain calls in, the bridge is opened up. So what I wanted to do was have the town manager work with Boynton, because Boynton citizens are having the exact same problem at that intersection we have. We have the additional problem of A1A, that's correct, A1A southbound, not so much northbound because there's the retention pond and there's a good stretch of natural land there. But the traffic coming from the south and trying to turn onto the bridge blocks in people's driveways, blocks in the various communities down there. So it becomes a real issue, and it's getting worse each year. This year it was ludicrous. So the concept is to get the town manager to go talk to the Boynton town manager, who should also be interested in this, and see if we can approach the Army Corps of Engineers, the Florida Department of Transportation, whoever else is involved in this. I think the Coast Guard's involved in it as well. And then to see if we can get the Woolbright Bridge opening on the 15 minutes. So it would open on the 15 minutes and the 45. So that is the concept here. And if we run into any kinds of issues, I would go for a 6-month change of schedule, which I don't think the Coast Guard would do. I think they'd rather have it one schedule all year round. Any comments from commissioners?
Using the Woolbright Bridge all the time, I think it's an excellent idea if we can get them to do it.
Yeah, yeah. So Jamie and Tracy?
It might be as simple as starting by just sending the Coast Guard a letter requesting the change and see what kind of response we get back from them.
Okay.
See if they're even amenable to it, or if we have to go full court press on it.
Okay, so you guys will take care of that?
Yeah, and we can reach out to Lori and Boynton too to see if she would.
Right, I would think they'd
Go
be,
along with us.
you know, this is one of these rare occasions where we can hold hand with Boynton on population growth.
The other thing
Mayor.
that might be worth exploring at the same time is, as Mayor Cos alluded to, is particularly because I'm most of the times traveling north on A1A, when the bridge is up, because we have a very truncated turn lane at that Woolbright intersection, cars are backed up to Briny Breezes, and it doesn't necessarily have to be that way, but you can't get through to go through. So I don't know, I mean, and there's not a lot of real estate there to even play with, so I don't even know if that's an option to kind of look at making either the turn lane longer or something else like that, but.
Yeah, the problem is those houses are, we already
Or even if
took
there
a
was a
strip for
light
it.
that lets you know that, because then you could run over Briny Breezes Boulevard, head down Old Ocean, you could run over Tropical, but once you get in the middle of it, you're in the middle of it, you're there, so. But like you said, it's been crazy this year.
Yeah, it's ludicrous.
Mayor Cos, there was another issue we had with the no wake zone a couple months ago.
Yeah.
We said we were going to look into that. Do you want to add that to the letter, or do you think you'll
Sure,
just confuse
I
it?
know from previously, that's a toughie, because the boating lobbies are pretty large, but we could certainly, as long as we're approaching the Coast Guard and all these powers that be on the bridge, we'll ask them about the wake zone as well. That's a good idea.
Yeah, well, it deteriorates the seawalls, so.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to, we'll leave it with Jamie and Tracy on the Woolbright Bridge. Okay, Ocean Ridge zip code. I brought this up at a previous meeting, and I don't know how much appetite there was for it. The idea is that we get our own zip code. It should help with the Airbnb, it should help with our identity, it makes Ocean Ridge special. And we're not considered Boynton. If you punch in Airbnb 33435, you get Boynton and Ocean Ridge. And especially if we put more teeth in our Airbnb laws, if we have our own zip code, when people hit that zip code, we have more options open to us to block this behavior. It also increases property values. Right now, if somebody's looking for property, then they punch in your address, any street address here, half the time it'll pop Boynton Beach, not Ocean Ridge. So there's no negative to the zip code, changing the zip code, getting our own zip code, but it's a Don Quixote task. It's going to take 2 years, and I think Vice Mayor Magruder was worried about the staff taking too much time to do this, sucking up too much energy. But I do believe that we have a citizen who has volunteered to head this charge, and is very knowledgeable with commission behavior, commission activity, town officials, and he might be sitting in his last meeting. And I would like to have Bob Sloat
Well-
take a run at this if he'd do it.
Well, I did a little research on it. It's a fairly complicated process. The first thing we have to do is actually, it's one of the things we do if we're rejected, and I think we need to do it before, is to send out a survey to all the residents and say we're considering the zip code boundary change. And the district manager, there are 3 district managers in Florida. There are 123 district managers throughout the country from the post office. And we would submit to the district manager our request. But the district manager will come back and say, did you have a majority of residents saying that they're interested in a zip code change? Because if we don't have a majority of residents, the district manager will reject any request we make. Also, we need to look, before we even start the process, at our insurance companies. Will our insurance rates go up if we have our own zip code? Because quite often insurance rates are predicated upon zip code. And right now, since we're attached to Boynton Beach, we may have lower or we may have higher insurance rates, and it's something that we need to consider. We need to investigate that with insurance companies. But I think it's a very complicated process, and in the end, if we do get approved, we need to coordinate with Boynton Beach, because if Boynton Beach says they won't handle our mail, then we need to have a physical facility. We need to have our own mail carrier. We need to have our own mail handler. So the first thing might very well be, before we even jump into it, is to send a survey. And, the post office has given us, and you can pass these out to the commission members, a sample letter. And the letter basically says, dear postal customer, on behalf of customers in your area, and that could be on behalf of the commission, the Postal Service is asking whether you want a zip code change. And they want the data in our request stating that a majority of our citizens wanted a zip code change. I don't know if I passed out enough.
Yeah.
So I think the next commission needs to look at 2 things. One, do you want to send out the letter before even any attempt is made to request a zip code change? And 2 is to ask the town manager to check with insurance companies and see if we had our own zip code. Would your homeowner's insurance, would your automobile insurance, would your liability insurance go up or down? And that's...
You're the perfect man for the job.
Well, thank you for the research that
Yeah.
you've done thus far, because that's gotten us a lot further than we started. I think that you're correct in your assumption. We have to be careful of the law of unintended consequences. And rather than getting everybody all excited that this might be a possibility, or even asking if they want it to be a possibility, I would feel more comfortable knowing some of the financial implications, not only on an individual level, but on a town level. Because if we have to build a post office and have a carrier and do all this stuff, we're talking,
Right, but-
besides that.
But we wouldn't do that. The idea is
That's right.
that Bob is the exploratory committee, and we see where this goes, what obstacles are in our way.
There is a section that we would have to state, if Boynton Beach would not cooperate with us, is what our facility costs would be, what our personnel costs would be, what our equipment costs would be. We need our own mail truck. And, this is prohibitive.
Right, but Bob, couldn't you ask Boynton Beach ahead of time? Couldn't you ask Boynton Beach ahead of time?
I'm not comfortable starting a municipal inquiry until we
You're right.
have got some more
I'm not
information.
comfortable with that either. I think, the thing to do is I would be happy to contact our postal district manager. We have a new one here who just started last May, so he may be amenable to a discussion. He comes from Mississippi. He's very highly touted, but he's responsible for the southeast section of Florida. And I would be happy if the commission asked me to visit with him to see what it would take, because all the information I have is basically, printed on the computer. There was an attempt with the 101st Congress, we're at the 116th now, so it was 30 years ago, to let municipalities, one of the House of Representatives from New Jersey wanted municipalities to make their own zip codes. And it failed miserably 30 years ago. And the post office said, don't try it again. And even if we asked our local representative, I think it's Lois Frankel, to intercede, she would intercede, but we would still have to fill out all the forms and meet the criteria of the post office.
Jamie, remind me, I thought about 3 years we went through this activity. I thought Mayor Pugh had asked a similar question. I mean, what traction did we get? Did we not get? I mean.
We got to the threshold of what Dr. Sloat is talking about there. The former mayor did ask us to look into it. We did make contact to Congressional Office, Frankel's staff. They were amused by our inquiry. They said it's not an easy task to get to, which is part of the reason when it came up this time, we suggested that maybe a citizen committee or somebody look at it, because there's no scale and scope of what it would take for the staff to bring it in for a landing. There are all these surveys, these requirements and considerations, and until you get the facts and get the feedback, you don't know what you're looking at. But certainly, we didn't recommend as a staff that we should take it on as a project until it was better defined. Hence, Dr. Sloat stepping up to the plate.
Most of the zip code approvals have been for municipalities of a population of 25,000 or more. Our municipality is 1,700.
We've got a ways to go.
Yeah. So, I'm just saying, it's a long, involved process. And I would be happy if the commission wanted me to talk to the postal district manager and find out whether he would even consider having us submit the appropriate paperwork.
Well, can I get a clarification, though, before we vote on this? Are you saying that if we do it, we have to have our own post office and all that stuff? They're going to tell us that, or we have to get Boynton Beach to do it for us?
What they're saying is that we have to submit to them various identifying and internal and external issues. One of them is, are we going to have our own post office and build our own facility, or are we going to work in coordination with Boynton Beach and still have Boynton Beach handle our mail? But in that case, we may have to pay Boynton Beach. I don't know. I haven't, at this point, I don't want to talk to Boynton Beach. I'll talk to the postal authorities. But yes, if Boynton Beach says no, since we have our own zip code, because right now everything is going through Boynton Beach, then we would have to get our own facility, and not a facility that, is in a storefront. It would be our own physical facility, our own truck, our own postmaster, or.
Well, I think we'd nix it at that point, right?
But
So-
at that point,
What this is just to get a consensus to let Bob explore this, and he'll answer our questions during that exploration.
I would be happy to, Zoanne.
Yes, Zoanne?
Zoanne Hennigan, 91 Highland Drive South. My suggestion, and I'm hearing this even from somebody that's sitting behind me, before we even look at postal stuff, if you're willing to spend some time, I think the first question would be, is looking at these insurance rates. If it's going to have, if our insurance is going to go up for anything, I would just nix the whole thing. I mean, why bother? But yeah, there's a couple of little nuggets of nice to haves for the Airbnb, but that's, little nice nuggets are not worth all this hullabaloo.
Well, with the insurance rates, in some cities, the insurance company insured people living in the city. In other cities, insurance rates were predicated upon zip codes. So it depends on what, and this is in the past. I couldn't find anything about insurance after 2006 on the internet search. So it may be a moot point. Insurance companies may not use zip codes anymore.
I think they do, or even if it's a town, if it's an Ocean Ridge
We'll
versus.
find out, we'll
So,
find
but
out.
my suggestion is, I would go look at the potential financial implication first to residents before you even go any further. That's my suggestion.
So do we have a consensus to let Bob begin exploring this, paying particular attention to any increased insurance rates that it would cause?
Well, I agree in any financial
Yeah,
issue.
any financial impact. Okay. Okay, we have consensus.
RAV4, postal delivery? I like it.
Okay, agenda item 18, it's by myself and Commissioner Dahasset. So why don't you read it?
Okay, fantastic. As you know, I am your representative, your town representative at the Palm Beach League of Cities and the Florida League of Cities. And a lot of what happens, especially at this time of year, as the legislation starts to get going, lots of bills start to be thrown out. And one of the things that the League of Cities is always very good about is making sure that everybody is aware of home rule. They understand what home rule is. And then we are tasked as representatives to come back to our municipalities and see if any of the changes that are being proposed affect our city in particular. And if they do, ask and reach out to the residents to say, these are the different ways that you can oppose something or you could support something. And it's usually in the form of writing your representatives, making phone calls to your representatives, et cetera. So just in case somebody doesn't know what home rule is, and it is local decision-making, self-government, citizen-centered solutions. Home rule is the flexibility to address unique local needs with local solutions. The Florida Constitution states in Article 8, Section 2B, municipalities shall have the governmental, corporate, and propriety powers to enable them to conduct municipal government, perform municipal functions, and render municipal services, and may exercise power for municipal purposes except as otherwise provided by the law. So basically that says we live local, we make our own rules, and we don't want to live by county rules, sweeping rules, or state sweeping rules. And there's about 118 bills that are kind of tracking their way through that I am looking at. Jamie's very well versed on this, as most of our staff. I mean, some of them are as benign as bizarre as allowing the state saying that anybody can grow a vegetable garden in their front yard and you can't tell anybody what to do. Some of the other ones talk about smoking on the beach, which might be something that we might want to look at. There's discrimination in employment screening that basically says, one bill that says you can't ask if they've ever been arrested on the initial application. You'd have to wait till you get a little bit further down the process. It just goes, like I said, one is codifying what we already do in public meetings, but do we want to be held to the state never being able to change what we do in public meetings? So that is a lot of what these preemptive bills do, is they take the right for us to govern here away from us, and we have to follow state rules. So just wanted to let you know, we're looking at them. The League of Cities is absolutely fantastic. They have a very strong lobbying group. They also reach out to a lot of the municipalities and have fly-in days where you go to Tallahassee, where you go to Washington. They have weekly call-ins. So I know that there was one representative on planning and zoning that read an article and it piqued their interest, and so I appreciate that, because it's not totally scandalous reading at most times. So, but if anybody would like to have further information, and/or there is a Monday morning calling that you can call in and hear what has happened over the past week or what is coming up, please let me know. But just know that we've got our eyes on it, and it's something that it really affects everybody. It doesn't sound very sexy, but the minute that they change a rule that we don't want to live by, it's almost impossible to then change it back. You have to wait a full year until the legislator meets again. You have to make sure that you have someone that sponsors the bill. You don't know how many committees it has to go through. So it's an important deal. So
Could I add one comment real quick?
Absolutely.
Just because it came up several times here, probably the best example for you of this here is the legislature preempted local governments on short-term rental regulation. So anything that did not exist in our code before 2011 cannot be changed or updated by state legislative rules. So just mull on that for a minute and think about the implications, because several of you have referenced the problem with Airbnb and short-term rentals. We have been preempted from passing new ordinances that address those issues under state legislation. And categorically, that's what this home rule preemption is all about, on any significant issue, even down to what month you have your elections in. Anything that you might decide here is being preempted systematically at the state level by some of these initiatives. So it's an important issue to everybody.
So
regardless
just so
of where your
Jamie
passions
doesn't
are.
scare you to death, we did have the vision to put some ordinances in place about the whole Airbnb, and we have, you cannot rent your domicile for less than 30 days, is what we were able to get passed. So that's great, because if we hadn't, the legislation coming up basically says you don't have that right as a municipality at all.
And the League of Cities does encourage the various cities, commissioners and whatnot to attend sessions in Tallahassee. The 5th and 6th, which is this month, they have the Palm Beach County Day in Tallahassee, and Jamie's attending that on behalf of the town and his new town, I'm sure. And then also on the 26th and 27th, they have the Florida League of Cities Legislative Action Days in Tallahassee. And I don't know if we have a commissioner here that would go to that. I'm not available. I'm doing something else that day, but maybe Christine, if you have time to do that, or the mayor, or any of the.
Well, I'm looking into it. I got to check my calendar.
Okay,
see if I
good.
can get out
Okay,
there.
that'd be great. That really would. That would, because you only get recognized if you're there and speak your piece. So sitting back and not saying anything and say, geez, I really disagree with that, without at least calling, mailing, texting, or being there, is the only way you get heard.
So Tracy, we don't really need a consensus on this. I mean, it was more of just a discussion.
Yeah.
Okay, so,
I have one other item before you.
yeah, the scooters got pushed off. The scooters was originally.
Talk about it right now if you'd like.
All right, underneath, we're going to squeeze one thing in under this umbrella, which Rick's here, yep. Rick, this is Rick Carey, who brought something to the attention of the police chief.
I think that the topic that we've just been discussing is the umbrella for everything, and it's very helpful to hear this discussion, but it's, whether it's Airbnb or scooters or any other item that could happen in this town, and we just, if you're familiar with what's occurred in Fort Lauderdale, they've had a real problem with these rentable scooters that get abandoned everywhere. Hollywood just passed an ordinance in order to ban them because they anticipate that the legislature may take that authority away from home rule. And, you know, I don't think Ocean Ridge in of itself is going to be a mecca for rental scooters. However, if rental scooters start showing up in Boynton Beach, where are you going to ride the scooter to? You're going to ride it to the beach. And where are you going to ride it? You're going to ride it on the sidewalk. My son lived in Atlanta, and they've been inundated with the scooters, and they make you sign to say you will not ride them on sidewalks. You won't ride them on roads. You'll ride them in bike lanes. But the reality is that they go everywhere, and our sidewalks.
Could you define scooter for everyone?
Yes, that's a good idea.
These are rental electric scooters that are used a lot by tourists.
But they're not, we're not talking Vespas. There's a specific description.
No, we're talking about a stand-up
right.
scooter. And what happened is that they, as I understand it, and maybe some of you have experienced this in other cities, is that when your rental period ends, you just lay it to the side of the road. In theory, they get picked up by the vendor. They have them on GPS or something, but they can become clutter. They can, and they're certainly are difficult on the sidewalks. They're supposed to be rented by people above 18. They're supposed to wear helmets. but there's a woman in the hospital in a vegetative state now in Fort Lauderdale that had a collision with a car with one. So it's an issue that we need to be aware of. If it wasn't for the home rule question, that it might be preempted by the legislature, you'd wait till you had a problem. Question is, do we try to look at what some other towns are doing and put something in our ordinance that protects us in case the state makes a decision that says no. And this is, again, under the umbrella of home rule. This isn't the only issue we have to watch out for. It's good to have the League of Cities looking to protect us and give us heads up. So that's why I read the
That's why you
article
said
and
right.
thought of our coastal town.
Now you know about zucchinis running wild, so I just,
You want to add anything to that, Chief? Or does that pretty much sum it up?
No, I think Mr. Carey summed it up very well. There is currently statutory restrictions on the operation of electric scooters as an electric scooter is defined in statute that prohibits operation on a roadway or on a sidewalk. The city has the ability to make an ordinance to allow it, which I think is what's concerning Hollywood. They don't want that, and they're afraid that the legislature will preempt them from that. So if there is a concern here, perhaps it's something that the attorney could look into gathering Hollywood's ordinance for us and enacting that as a preemptive move. I'm familiar with them from traveling to other cities, and if they're not managed well, you have scooters laying everywhere that you have to walk around.
Well, they're going 16 to 18 miles an hour down the sidewalks.
One definition is up to 18 miles an hour, and one is no more than 30.
Wow.
well, the other part of it is is enforcement of it, and do we want our officers enforcing that or enforcing speeding tickets and the other, do we want to have a scooter officer? I mean, I don't know about that. Don't even answer that.
The point is, if we don't have something on the books before home rule, we can't go against home rule.
So the issue, as far as I understand it, is this. Currently, electric scooters are prohibited by state law in Ocean Ridge because we don't have any public or private places to drive them. The next issue comes with rental scooters and regulation of business, because the officer scooter can't enforce scooters on the sidewalk and on the road now if they're an electric scooter under definition. There's some attorney general opinions from years ago regarding this. It depends on which section of the statute you read, whether they're considered a motor vehicle or not. If the town believes that there may be an inundation of them in Boynton, and there is hope for this particular bill, and I think there's 2,497 of them that I saw to be reviewed, then perhaps it's not a bad time to look at it and come back to you with something perhaps the attorney could recommend.
That sound like a plan, Brian?
Sure.
We have only 3 months.
Thank you, Rick. Okay, was that what you were going to bring up too, the scooters?
No, I had another issue. Based on the 4 to 6 inches of rain that we had the previous week, I'm planning to meet with Lisa Trepepi this Wednesday on her regular time with Ocean Ridge. We're going to be looking at a number of problems that were identified in town as far as flooding. So we are particularly looking at Spanish River. We're looking at the detention pond. We're looking at A1A. If anyone else has any issues in your community where you had large amounts of standing water after that rain, I'd appreciate it if you would contact the town staff and give them your name and address, and we'll check those out also to see if there's anything else that we may be able to do is to try and control that flooding. So I wanted to make the commission aware of that and the public as well.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to adjourn the meeting, and immediately upon adjourning the meeting, I'm going to do a presentation to our town manager, and you're all invited to a little bit of beverages and celebration after the meeting. Excuse me? Yeah, that's what I was gonna do. Jamie? You've been with us? You've been with us? 2015? Stay with us for 5 more minutes. Stay with us for 5 more minutes.
We're here for 2 more weeks.
We couldn't afford a saddle because we understand there's a lot of horses out there in Waxahachie Grove, but I want to give you this,
Yeah.
it's showing
Yeah,
our
that'll go.
gratitude.
That'll go a long way.
For your time and service.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I know.
Good luck in the adventure. Thank you so much. Appreciate that.